Love doesn't always come with fireworks or grand declarations. Sometimes it arrives softly, in half-smiles, quiet glances, and the silence between text messages. When a man starts falling for someone or feels deeply emotionally attached, he doesn't always come out and say it. In fact, many times, he won't say anything at all. But that doesn't mean he isn't speaking. His actions, pauses, and subtle choices begin to form a language of their own, one that quietly asks, "Do you feel the same?" It's easy to recognize the bold gestures, the romantic dates, the sweet compliments, the surprise gifts. But what's often missed are the hidden signs. The moments when he tests your reaction without warning. The way he observes more than he speaks. The small shifts in behavior that reveal how much your presence, or absence, truly matters to him. Emotional connection, for many men, isn't about confessing feelings right away. It's about testing the waters first. Not because they are playing games, but because vulnerability is hard. Rejection stings. So rather than asking you outright if you're still interested, he might take a quieter approach, holding back affection to see if you notice, delaying his reply just to see if you care enough to double text, or bringing up an old memory to check if it still lives in your heart the way it does in his. In these moments, he's not trying to manipulate you. He's trying to read the invisible signs between you, trying to understand if what he feels is mutual. If you still feel the electricity he does when your hands brush, if you still laugh at the jokes only the two of you understand, if you still light up when he walks in. These tests may be silent, but they are deeply emotional. They reveal not just his feelings for you, but his fears, his hope, and the quiet ache of wanting something real without being the only one reaching for it. This list is for the women who wonder why he suddenly pulled back, why he mentioned another woman out of nowhere, or why he keeps revisiting old memories. It's for those who want to understand the subtle ways a man checks if you're still emotionally there with him, even if he's too afraid to ask aloud. So let's pull back the curtain. Here are 15 silent ways a man checks if you're still interested, and what those quiet signals truly mean. Because sometimes love doesn't shout, it watches. It waits. It whispers. And if you know how to listen, you'll hear everything. 1. He watches your reactions when he talks about other women. When a man silently checks if you're still interested, one of the most telling ways is by watching how you react when he brings up other women. He doesn't do this to boast or make you jealous outright. It's more subtle than that. He might casually mention a female friend, a co-worker, or even someone who complimented him, just to see what shifts in your face, tone, or energy. He's not necessarily interested in the other woman. He's interested in your emotional response. If you lean in, get quiet, change the subject, or suddenly act different, he notices. He watches closely. He's measuring whether you still care, whether there's still a spark beneath the surface. Maybe you don't even realize you're reacting, but he does. Your slight pause, the flicker in your eyes, or the way your replies become short or sarcastic. These silent cues give him more information than words ever could. On the other hand, if you seem completely unaffected, he might wonder if you've emotionally checked out. That's what he's trying to figure out, where your heart stands without having to ask directly. He doesn't want to seem insecure or desperate, so instead of confronting you, he observes you. It's a quiet test. He's gauging your attachment, your possessiveness, and your interest, all by planting a simple, seemingly harmless reference to another woman. In that moment, he isn't just making conversation. He's reading you like a page, looking for undercurrents in your calm. Because sometimes the deepest truths are not in what we say, but in what we can't hide when caught off guard. 2. He delays replying to your text to see if you double text. When a man is unsure where he stands with you, or wants to quietly test your level of interest, he may start delaying his replies on purpose. This isn't always about being busy or distracted. Often, it's intentional. He's waiting, watching, and wondering, will she text again? Will she follow up? Will she notice I've pulled back and care enough to reach forward? By not replying right away, he creates silence. And in that silence, he observes what you do. If you double text, even with something small like "Did you see my message?" or just checking, It tells him that you're still emotionally invested, still seeking connection. That single extra text, to him, is a sign that you're not ready to let the thread between you break. He may not admit it, but is checking for reassurance. Reassurance that you miss talking to him, that you think about him when he's not around, that you're the one keeping the rhythm alive, not just him. It's not necessarily a game. It's often insecurity wrapped in silence. He might be afraid of coming off too eager or being rejected. So instead of asking you directly, he uses time as a mirror. If I step back, will she step forward? Every minute he leaves your message unseen or delivered becomes a quiet gauge. It's a way of saying, without saying, do I still matter? And when you respond, not out of pressure, but from genuine care, it answers his unspoken question more clearly than any words could. 3. He subtly withdraws affection to gauge your response. When a man is emotionally unsure but deeply curious about your feelings, one of the quiet ways he checks your interest is by subtly withdrawing his affection. This doesn't mean he stops caring. It means he temporarily pulls back to see how you'll respond to the shift. He might stop sending good morning texts, hold back compliments, or become less physically affectionate. Maybe he stops initiating hugs, kisses, or long phone calls. It's never loud or dramatic. It's a slow, quiet change that feels like something's just missing. And that's exactly what he wants to see. Do you notice? Do you care? Do you pull away too? Or move closer? For him, your reaction speaks volumes. If you ask what's wrong, show concern, or try to reconnect, it signals that you're still emotionally invested. If you match his distance with silence of your own, he might take it as a sign that your feelings have faded, even if that's not true. In his mind, affection is a dance, and by stepping back, he's waiting to see if you'll reach out to pull him back in. This silent withdrawal is often driven by vulnerability. He wants to know if he's loved without having to ask. So he creates a subtle void, not to punish you, but to understand you better. And while it may seem unfair or confusing, it's how some men protect their hearts while still seeking answers. In that silence, in that lack of touch or warmth, he's not pushing you away. He's watching if you'll notice what's gone, and if you'll miss it enough to bring it back. 4. He brings up inside jokes to see if you still laugh. When a man wants to know if you're still emotionally connected, one of the softest and most telling things he does is bring up old inside jokes. These are the private, shared memories that once made you both laugh, moments only the two of you understood. So when he suddenly mentions that silly nickname, or repeats a phrase from a funny conversation you once had, it's not random. It's intentional. He's not just trying to be funny. He's quietly checking if the spark is still alive. If you laugh, smile, or play along, it tells him those memories still matter to you, that your bond hasn't faded, that you still feel something when he revisits the past you created together. But if your reaction is flat, indifferent, or confused, he notices. To him, it can feel like a wall going up, as if the emotional thread you once shared is unraveling. It's not just about humor. It's about connection, about whether the little world he once had with you still exists. By bringing up inside jokes, he's also trying to reignite closeness without directly asking for it. It's his way of saying, remember us, without putting himself in a vulnerable position. Because if you respond with warmth, he knows the emotional intimacy is still there. If not, it leaves him wondering where things changed. So when he suddenly laughs about that time you spilled coffee in the elevator, or repeats a silly voice you once teased him with, he's doing more than reminiscing. He's knocking gently on the door of your shared history, hoping you'll still open it. 5. He mirrors your texting pace and tone. When a man is emotionally invested but unsure of where he stands with you, one of the quietest ways he checks your interest is by mirroring your texting pace and tone. This isn't just coincidence. It's often a calculated form of emotional alignment. He's observing how often you message, how quickly you reply, how much enthusiasm you show, and then subtly matching it. If you take hours to respond, he might start doing the same. If you're dry or distant in your texts, he may reply in short, reserved ways too. If you send warm, thoughtful messages, he might gradually reflect that same energy back to you. This isn't mimicry out of laziness. It's a protective strategy. He's silently asking, how close should I be? How safe is it to express more? By adjusting his behavior to yours, he's testing the emotional rhythm between you. He doesn't want to seem needy or push too far ahead, so instead of leading the conversation, he lets you set the emotional tone and then follows your lead. In his mind, this keeps things balanced. It minimizes rejection, awkwardness, or the fear of looking too eager. It's a subtle dance of control and vulnerability. He's offering emotional presence without overcommitting, hoping you'll notice and match his energy too. So when you respond quickly, playfully, or with warmth, he feels more confident. But when you go cold or distant, he withdraws, mirroring what he believes is your emotional state. In reality, he's not just replying, he's listening with his heart, matching your pace like a silent question. Are we still moving together, or have I been walking alone? 6. He randomly mentions your past moments together. When a man is emotionally attached but uncertain about your current feelings, he may start randomly bringing up moments you've shared in the past. This isn't just nostalgia. It's a quiet, intentional way to test if those memories still mean something to you too. He might say, remember that night we got lost and ended up at that weird cafe? Or I was thinking about that time you couldn't stop laughing in the rain. At first, it sounds casual, like he's just recalling a funny or sweet moment. But there's more beneath the surface. Is bringing those memories up to see how you react. Do you smile? Do your eyes light up? Do you respond warmly or awkwardly change the subject? Every tiny response gives him insight into where your heart stands now. These shared memories are emotional bookmarks for him, proof that what you two had was real and special. So when he mentions them, he's not just talking about the past. He's reaching for a thread that once connected you both deeply, hoping it's still there. If you engage with the memory, laugh with him, or even finish the story together, it tells him that emotional closeness still exists between you. But if your response feels distant or forced, he feels that too. It might not hurt out loud, but it lands silently, a sign that maybe you've emotionally moved on. At its core, this quiet habit of recalling your shared past isn't just about memory. It's about meaning. He's trying to figure out if those old moments still have weight, if he still has a place in your heart, even if no one's saying the words out loud. 7. He checks your social media stories but doesn't always react. When a man is emotionally attached but unsure of how you feel, one of the most subtle things he might do is consistently check your social media stories without reacting. He may never comment, never like, and never slide into your DMs, but he's there, watching. Silently, regularly. This kind of quiet presence isn't random. It's deliberate. He wants to stay connected without crossing a line. By watching your stories, he keeps up with your life, what you're doing, where you are, how you're feeling, all without making himself vulnerable. It's his way of saying, I still care, even if he doesn't feel safe enough to say it out loud. You might notice his name always at the top of the viewers list. That's not a coincidence. Instagram, Snapchat, or even Facebook, he's paying attention. Maybe he's hoping you'll notice him there. Maybe he's testing whether your stories ever feel like they are meant for him. And maybe he's waiting to see if you'll reach out first. This silence can be louder than words. He's present but distant, close but unreachable. He doesn't want to seem desperate, so he hides behind the safety of just seeing. But make no mistake, every view is a pulse check. A quiet check-in on the emotional connection between you two. If you ever wonder whether he's moved on, this digital shadow says otherwise. Because someone who truly doesn't care stops watching. But someone who does, he watches, silently, consistently, hoping your world still has a corner where he belongs. 8. He hints about being busy to see if you mind. When a man is emotionally invested but uncertain about your level of interest, he may begin to subtly hint that he's been busy, not to brag, but to see how you'll respond. This is his quiet way of testing your emotional temperature without sounding needy or obvious. He might say things like, "It's been a hectic week," or "Sorry, I've been tied up with work lately." These aren't always updates, they are feelers. Beneath those words is an unspoken question. Did you miss me? Did you even notice I wasn't around as much? By presenting himself as unavailable or occupied, he's checking if you'll express concern, curiosity, or even a little disappointment. If you respond with warmth, asking about his schedule or saying you miss talking to him, it reassures him. It tells him that his presence or absence still matters to you. But if you seem unbothered or indifferent, he might take that silence personally. Even though he was the one who pulled back, he's secretly hoping you'll pull him back in with your reaction. It's a paradox. He creates distance, not to leave, but to see if you'll reach across it. This kind of behavior is often more about emotional validation than actual business. It's not about his schedule, it's about his heart. He wants to know he still holds space in yours. And instead of asking directly, he retreats just enough to observe. Does she care that I'm not around? Would she notice if I disappeared for good? So when he hints at being busy, listen beyond the words. Sometimes, behind that casual excuse, is a man quietly asking if he still matters. 9. He suddenly changes his appearance or grooming. When a man is quietly trying to gauge your interest, one of the more subtle, yet powerful, moves he might make is changing his appearance or grooming habits. It's not always dramatic or flashy. Sometimes, it's as simple as a fresh haircut, a new cologne, dressing better, or shaving differently. But beneath those changes is a silent question. Did you notice? He's not doing it purely for himself. He's doing it to see if you see him differently. If you compliment the change or show interest, it gives him a sense of validation. It signals that you're still paying attention, that he still has a hold on your attention, even if just a little. On the surface, it might look like self-care or confidence, and sometimes it is. But when it happens suddenly, especially after some emotional distance, silence, or uncertainty, it's often a quiet test. He wants to see if a newer version of himself still makes your eyes linger. He might not even say anything about it. He'll just show up, subtly sharper, cleaner, more thoughtful in his presentation. And then he waits. He watches, not just for words, but for your reaction, your glance, your expression, your tone. If you don't notice at all, he may retreat emotionally, interpreting it as disinterest. But if you do, even with a passing compliment, it reassures him in ways deeper than you might realize. In truth, this silent shift in appearance is his way of saying, I still want to be seen by you. Not by the world, not by everyone else, by you. Because sometimes we change how we look just to find out if we still look like someone worth loving in the eyes that matter most. 10. He brings up what-if scenarios involving you both. When a man is emotionally drawn to you but unsure of where he stands, he might start bringing up hypothetical what-if scenarios involving the two of you. These aren't just random daydreams. They're quiet invitations into his thoughts. He might casually say things like, what if we took a trip together someday? Or what if we were neighbors? Or even, what if we met earlier in life? On the surface, it sounds playful, harmless curiosity. But underneath, it's layered with meaning. He's imagining a version of life where you're more intertwined, more present in his world. These little scenarios are his way of testing how you feel about the idea of being closer, without directly confessing his hopes. He watches your reaction closely. If you laugh it off, avoid answering, or seem uncomfortable, he'll likely pull back. But if you play along, smile, or even contribute to the daydream, it tells him everything he needs to know, that you might be open to something deeper. It's his way of gauging possibility without risking rejection. He doesn't want to say, I want us to be more, outright. So he wraps that feeling inside light conversation. These what-ifs are disguised vulnerability, soft steps toward emotional intimacy. What he's really asking, without saying it, is, do you ever think about us too? Do I exist in your future the way you exist in mine? He may never admit that out loud, but every imagined scenario is his silent way of placing you in the spaces he secretly hopes you will one day fill. 11. He stops initiating conversations just to see if you will. When a man is emotionally invested but uncertain about your feelings, he might suddenly stop initiating conversations, not because he's lost interest, but because he wants to see if you will make the effort. This quiet shift isn't about punishing you or creating drama. It's a subtle test. A pause. A way to see whether the connection flows both ways. He may have been the one consistently reaching out, sending good morning texts, checking in after long days, or starting chats just to hear your voice. But if he starts to feel like he's always the one doing the work, a question begins to grow inside him. Would she still talk to me if I didn't make the first move? So he goes silent. Not cold, not rude, just absent. He watches, waits, wonders if you'll notice the space is left behind, and if you'll try to fill it. When you do initiate, even just to say hi, it reassures him more than you realize. It tells him you care, that you notice his absence, that you don't just enjoy his attention, you return it. But if days go by with no word from you, it can be quietly heartbreaking. Not because he expected fireworks, but because he hoped for a sign. A text, a call, a message that says, I missed you. In truth, his silence is not about games. It's about vulnerability wrapped in restraint. Is giving you the space to reveal your intentions. Because sometimes, the loudest way to ask, do you care, is to stop speaking and see who breaks the silence first. 12. He compliments others in front of you to watch your reaction. When a man feels emotionally drawn to you but isn't sure how you feel in return, one of the quiet, calculated things he might do is compliment other women in front of you, not out of genuine admiration, but as a way to watch your reaction. He doesn't do it to hurt you, though it might sting. He does it to observe, to study the change in your energy, your face, your tone. It might be something light like, she has a great smile, or that dress looks really good on her. On the surface, it sounds casual, maybe even harmless. But beneath that surface, it's a test. Will you react? Will your voice tighten? Will your smile fade? Will you change the subject, or lean into it coolly, like it doesn't bother you at all? He's not trying to make you jealous in a cruel way. He's trying to find emotional proof that you still care, that the idea of him admiring someone else doesn't sit easily with you. If you show even a flicker of discomfort, even something as subtle as a pause before responding, he picks up on it. And to him, that's a quiet confirmation. She still feels something. But if you stay indifferent, warm, or unaffected, he may silently interpret that as a lack of interest. It's a vulnerable place for him to be, because he's essentially asking a question without words. Do I matter enough that this unsettles you? In truth, his compliment isn't about the other woman, it's about you. And your reaction becomes his answer, even if you never say a word. 13. He randomly brings up things you like to test if you notice. When a man is emotionally invested but unsure where he stands with you, he may start randomly bringing up things he knows you love. Your favorite band, your go-to coffee order, that book you couldn't stop talking about, just to see if you notice he remembered. It seems casual, almost like a passing comment. But in truth, it's calculated in the quietest way. He's not doing it to show off. He's doing it to connect. By referencing things you like, he's hoping to create a subtle emotional bridge, a reminder that he listens, that he pays attention, and most importantly, that you matter. He's checking to see if you recognize the effort, if you'll light up, if your expression will shift in the tiniest way when he says, wasn't that the bakery you love? Or isn't this the song you always play? When you do notice, when you smile or respond warmly, it tells him he still has a place in your heart, that the small things still mean something between you. But if you brush it off or don't seem to register that he remembered something personal to you, he may quietly retreat, taking it as a sign that the emotional thread between you is thinning. This subtle move is not about the topic itself. It's about being seen and being remembered. His saying, without saying, I know you. I carry parts of you with me. And your response, however small, becomes the answer to the question he's too afraid to ask directly. Do I still hold space in your world the way you do in mine? 14. He accidentally mentions being single. When a man is emotionally drawn to you but unsure if you feel the same, he might accidentally mention that he's single, and it's rarely as accidental as it seems. He may casually slip it into conversation, saying things like, well, since I'm not seeing anyone, or I just made dinner for one, as usual. The tone will be nonchalant, almost like an afterthought, but the intention behind it is anything but. This is his quiet way of opening a door without actually walking through it. He wants you to know he's available, that no one else is occupying the space in his heart. But more than that, he wants to see how you react to knowing it. Do your eyes light up? Do you ask follow-up questions? Do you smile? Or does it not affect you at all? By revealing his single status in such an understated way, he's trying to create a safe moment. One where you might reveal something too, whether it's interest, curiosity, or hope. He's not making a move directly because that requires vulnerability and risk. Instead, he gives you a small piece of personal information and watches to see what you do with it. If you respond with interest or teasing warmth, he feels a subtle green light. If you ignore it or act indifferent, he may interpret that as a red flag, a signal to stay guarded. So when he lets it slip that he's single, he's not just talking about relationship status. He's giving you silent permission to see him as emotionally available and hoping you'll silently tell him you see it and maybe feel something about it. 15. He watches how much effort you still put into meeting or chatting. When a man is emotionally connected to you but uncertain about your current level of interest, he begins to silently observe something very telling. The effort you put into staying close. He doesn't always say it, but he watches everything. How often you initiate conversations, how quickly you reply, whether you suggest meeting up, how excited you sound when you talk to him, or how engaged you are when you're together. To him, effort is more than action. It's emotional currency. If you used to send long messages and now you only send dry one-liners, he notices. If you used to rearrange your schedule to see him and now you cancel or delay plans frequently, he feels it. He won't call you out directly, but deep down, he's measuring, am I still a priority, or am I slowly becoming an option? This observation isn't about ego, it's about clarity. He wants to know if the connection is still mutual, because when someone is truly interested, the effort stays consistent, or at least intentional. And when that effort fades, especially without reason, it quietly speaks volumes. So he pulls back slightly, not to manipulate, but to create space, to see what you'll do with it. Will you step in and close the gap, or let the distance grow? Your actions, or your silence, become his answer. In truth, when a man watches your effort, he's not looking for grand gestures. He's searching for signs that you still care, that you still want to be present in his world. Because for someone who truly values connection, even the smallest effort feels like love.